In the 1960s and 1970s, dinner was not about choice. It was about endurance. When money ran short and families grew, American kitchens responded with discipline, not decoration. Poor man dinners were built to last. Every ingredient served a purpose. Nothing was wasted. These meals fed households through layoffs, rising prices, and long weeks between paydays. Most of these dishes have vanished, replaced by convenience and excess. That loss matters. These dinners explain how ordinary people survived without comfort or shortcuts. In this video, we uncover 10 poor man dinners from the 1960s and 1970s that still taste good today. Beans and franks. In the 1960s and 1970s, beans and franks were not a joke meal. They were a strategy. When meat prices climbed and budgets tightened, this dish offered protein, warmth, and certainty. One pot. Few ingredients. Enough food to quiet a table full of kids after a long day. Canned pork and beans formed the base. Hot dogs were sliced thin to make them stretch further. Some families added onion or a spoon of mustard, but nothing was required. The meal worked even when cupboards were nearly empty. That reliability mattered more than flavor experiments. Beans and franks showed up on weeknights when paydays were still days away. It was cooked quickly, served hot, and eaten without ceremony. There were no leftovers planned, because the pot was usually scraped clean. It filled stomachs and allowed tomorrow to be faced with a little less worry. This dinner also taught a quiet lesson. You did not need abundance to feel fed. You needed balance. Beans carried fiber and calories. Franks added fat and salt. Together, they created something satisfying, even if nobody called it special at the time. Today, beans and franks are remembered with humor, but that memory misses the point. This dish kept families functioning. It kept children focused in school. It kept parents from skipping meals so others could eat. It was not glamorous, but it was dependable. This is why it belongs on this list. Beans and franks represent how American households adapted without complaint. It is proof that survival food can still taste good, not because it was cheap, but because it was eaten with purpose, consistency, and the knowledge that it would work every single time. That quiet certainty is why this meal refuses to disappear from American memory during hard times. Fried bologna sandwich. In the 1960s and 1970s, fried bologna sandwiches were not comfort food. They were a response to limited options. Bologna was cheap, easy to store, and already cooked. That made it reliable for households watching every dollar and every minute. The sandwich began with thick slices of bologna, usually scored so they would not curl in the pan. They were fried until the edges crisped and the center stayed soft. White bread, often toasted in the same skillet, became the base. Nothing was wasted. The grease flavored the bread, and the pan was wiped clean for the next meal. Some families added mustard. Others used a slice of American cheese if it was available. Many ate it plain. The goal was not variety. The goal was to eat something hot, filling, and familiar before the evening ended. Fried bologna appeared after school, late at night, or on weeks when meat counters were avoided entirely. It required no planning and no special skill. Children learned to make it early because it was safe, fast, and forgiving. That knowledge mattered in working households. This sandwich carried more than calories. It carried routine. It marked evenings when parents were tired but still present. It filled lunch pails and kitchen plates without explanation or apology. It was understood. Today, fried bologna is often treated as a joke or a novelty. That framing ignores its role. This meal kept costs low while keeping people fed. It offered warmth and salt and just enough fat to satisfy. It belongs on this list because it represents restraint without deprivation. Fried bologna sandwiches prove that survival meals did not aim to impress. They aimed to function. And for decades, this simple sandwich did exactly that, one skillet at a time. That purpose still resonates whenever times become uncertain. Chipped beef on toast. In the 1960s and 1970s, Chipped beef on toast was not considered old-fashioned. It was considered efficient. Dried beef lasted longer than fresh meat, required no refrigeration once opened, and delivered protein when other options were limited. That practicality made it a staple in low-budget kitchens. The meal began with thin slices of dried beef, rinsed to remove excess salt. A simple white sauce followed, made from milk, flour, and fat saved from earlier cooking. Nothing was wasted. Every spoon of sauce was stretched to cover more toast, more plates, and more people at the table. Toast acted as the foundation. It was cheap, filling, and familiar. When covered in hot creamed beef, it turned into a complete meal that felt heavier than it actually was. That illusion mattered. It allowed small portions to feel sufficient. Chipped beef on toast appeared often at breakfast for dinner meals or on nights when fresh groceries had run out. It was quick to prepare and required no precise measurements. Children grew up watching it made and learned how to replicate it without instruction. That transfer of knowledge kept the dish alive. The flavor was simple. Salty beef balanced by warm milk and bread. It did not aim to impress. It aimed to sustain. The sauce provided calories. The beef provided strength. The toast provided bulk. Together, they solved a problem without excess. Today, this dish is sometimes remembered with embarrassment. That reaction ignores its purpose. Chipped beef on toast carried households through periods of uncertainty. It allowed families to eat together when money dictated restraint. This meal belongs on this list because it represents quiet endurance. It shows how American kitchens used shelf-stable foods and basic technique to create something reliable. Chipped beef on toast was never meant to be celebrated. It was meant to work. And for decades, it did exactly that, night after night, without fail. Potato soup. In the 1960s and 1970s, potato soup was not a seasonal dish. It was a fallback meal. When money ran low and fresh options disappeared, potatoes remained. They were cheap, filling, and available year-round. That made them dependable when nothing else was. The soup usually began with whatever fat was on hand. Bacon grease was common, saved carefully in jars near the stove. Onions were softened first, then potatoes were added and covered with water or milk. There was no fixed recipe. The pot adjusted to what the kitchen allowed. Some versions included a small amount of milk to give the soup body. Others relied on mashed potatoes stirred back into the broth to create thickness. Salt and pepper were often the only seasonings. If bacon scraps or a ham bone were available, they were added for depth, not luxury. Potato soup mattered because it stretched. A few pounds of potatoes could feed an entire household. The soup reheated well and tasted better the next day. It was served with bread, crackers, or nothing at all. The goal was warmth and fullness, not variety. This meal showed up during winter, during layoffs, and during weeks when grocery money was already spent. It required time, not money. That trade-off made sense in homes where someone was always near the stove. Children grew up with the smell of potato soup filling the house. It signaled that dinner would be simple but certain. No one wondered what they were eating. They already knew. Today, potato soup is often dressed up and renamed. That version misses its original role. This dish was not about comfort marketing. It was about survival through repetition. Potato soup belongs on this list because it represents restraint done well. It proves that basic ingredients, used carefully, could keep families fed and steady. That lesson still matters whenever resources grow tight again. Tuna noodle casserole. In the 1960s and 1970s, tuna noodle casserole was not a trend. It was a system. When fresh meat was expensive and unpredictable, canned tuna offered protein that could sit on a shelf and wait. That patience made it valuable in working households. The base was simple. Egg noodles were boiled until soft. Canned tuna was drained and broken apart by hand. Cream soup, usually mushroom or celery, tied everything together. The mixture was stretched until it filled a baking dish large enough to serve everyone at once. This dinner mattered because it fed many with little. One can of tuna could reach multiple plates. Noodles provided bulk. The sauce added calories and familiarity. If frozen peas or crushed crackers were available, they were added, but nothing depended on them. Tuna noodle casserole often appeared at the start of the week, when groceries had just been purchased and needed to last. It was baked once and reheated without complaint. Leftovers were expected. The flavor improved as the dish settled, which made repetition acceptable. Children grew up recognizing the smell before they saw the table. It meant dinner was handled. There would be no last-minute worry. The meal was already decided. This casserole also reflected trust in convenience without excess. Canned food was not shameful. It was practical. The goal was nourishment, not appearance. Every component was chosen because it lasted and worked. Today, tuna noodle casserole is sometimes mocked or rewritten. That framing ignores its purpose. This dish allowed families to plan, portion, and survive without strain. It belongs on this list because it represents coordination under pressure. Tuna noodle casserole shows how American kitchens combined shelf-stable foods into something dependable. It was never meant to impress. It was meant to last. Meatloaf with scraps. In the 1960s and 1970s, meatloaf was not gourmet. It was a solution. Families faced rising meat prices, so leftover scraps, ground meat, and fillers became the building blocks of dinner. That pragmatism made meatloaf a mainstay in working-class kitchens. The process began with ground beef, often mixed with small amounts of pork or leftover cooked meats. Bread soaked in milk, onions, and eggs were added to bind the mixture. Nothing was wasted. Even crumbs or stale bread found purpose in the pan. The goal was consistency and quantity, not elegance. Meatloaf was shaped by hand into a simple loaf and baked until firm. A ketchup glaze or tomato sauce sometimes topped it, but not always. The flavor was secondary to the function. It fed the entire family with minimal cost. This dinner appeared on weeknights when funds were tight. It stretched ingredients and calories across plates, ensuring nobody left the table hungry. Leftovers were sliced cold for sandwiches, making the meal last multiple days. The ability to extend one dish into several meals was essential. Children learned to help measure and mix, often sneaking small tastes of raw crumbs or sauce. The meal reinforced practicality and patience. Every slice reminded the household that economy did not equal starvation. Today, meatloaf is often decorated, overcomplicated, or dismissed as dated. That perception misses the lesson. This dish shows adaptation, foresight, and balance, proving that even the humblest ingredients can satisfy. It belongs on this list because it demonstrates resilience in the American kitchen. Meatloaf with scraps represents how households survived lean times with care and purpose. It is not merely food. It is a record of resourcefulness, one baked loaf at a time, that still holds relevance decades later. Egg and potato skillet. In the 1960s and 1970s, the egg and potato skillet was not considered a treat. It was considered essential. When meat was expensive or unavailable, eggs and potatoes provided protein and calories at minimal cost. That practicality made this meal a staple in low-budget households. The preparation was straightforward. Potatoes were peeled, cubed, and fried in a small amount of fat saved from previous meals. Onions, if available, were added for flavor. Eggs were cracked directly into the skillet once the potatoes were soft. The dish required no special skills, only attention and patience. This skillet meal mattered because it stretched ingredients. 1 dozen eggs could feed a family over multiple breakfasts or dinners when combined with potatoes. Leftovers were reheated or incorporated into sandwiches. That ability to extend food was crucial for households navigating tight budgets. Egg and potato skillets often appeared at the start of the week after grocery day, or on evenings when meat was reserved for special occasions. The aroma filled the kitchen, signaling warmth and certainty. Children quickly learned how to crack eggs and stir the mixture, passing on skills that required no recipe. Flavor was simple but satisfying. Salt and pepper were often the only seasoning. The crisp edges of fried potatoes and the richness of eggs created a texture and taste that felt more substantial than its cost suggested. Today, this dish is sometimes overlooked as humble or ordinary. That view misses its role. The egg and potato skillet represents practicality, efficiency, and nourishment without extravagance. It belongs on this list because it demonstrates how ordinary ingredients, combined with care, can provide a complete, satisfying meal. This dish shows the ingenuity of American kitchens under constraint and why it remained a dependable dinner for decades. Its legacy continues as a reminder of resourcefulness and simplicity. Sloppy Joes. In the 1960s and 1970s, Sloppy Joes were not a fast food novelty. They were a practical solution for families on a budget. Ground beef, the main ingredient, was often mixed with breadcrumbs or rice to stretch it further. That economy made the sandwich a dependable meal in homes across America. The preparation was simple. Ground beef was browned in a skillet. Onions, if available, were added for flavor. Tomato sauce, ketchup, or a small amount of water created a sauce that coated the meat. The mixture was simmered until thick and spreadable. Bread served as the base, absorbing flavor and providing bulk. Sloppy Joes were valued because they could feed multiple people without requiring expensive cuts of meat. The dish reheated well and produced minimal waste. Leftovers often became lunch for the next day, demonstrating its practicality. This meal appeared frequently on weeknights. Children enjoyed the hands-on experience of assembling sandwiches. Adults appreciated the simplicity and the ability to feed a family quickly. No special tools or skills were required, only careful attention to the pan and timing. Flavor was straightforward. The sauce provided tang and moisture. The bread absorbed the mixture, creating a filling and satisfying meal. Nothing was extravagant, but it was nourishing and consistent. Today, Sloppy Joes are sometimes seen as nostalgic or informal food. That view overlooks their importance. This dish represents how American households managed limited resources while still providing meals that satisfied both hunger and taste. It belongs on this list because it demonstrates practicality, adaptability, and efficiency in the kitchen. Sloppy Joes show that even simple ingredients, used wisely, could produce a reliable dinner that carried families through busy weeks and lean times, making it a classic of American resourceful cooking. Macaroni and cheese from scratch. In the 1960s and 1970s, macaroni and cheese from scratch was not a luxury. It was a necessity. Boxed versions existed, but homemade dishes were cheaper, more flexible, and stretched further. This simple meal could feed an entire family using minimal ingredients, making it a staple in many American households. The preparation began with boiling elbow macaroni until tender. While the pasta cooked, a basic cheese sauce was made from butter, flour, and milk. Cheese, often a small amount of cheddar, was melted into the sauce to create a creamy consistency. Nothing was wasted, even leftover pasta water could be added to adjust the sauce. Macaroni and cheese mattered because it combined bulk and protein into a single dish. Noodles provided substance, while cheese supplied flavor and calories. Some households added breadcrumbs on top or a sprinkle of paprika, but those were optional enhancements. The dish was designed to satisfy, not impress. This meal appeared frequently on nights when money was tight or the meat supply was low. It could be prepared quickly, reheated easily, and extended with vegetables or leftover bits if necessary. Children grew up associating the aroma with comfort and certainty, even when resources were scarce. Flavor was simple yet memorable. Creamy, salty, and warm, macaroni and cheese created a sense of fullness without excess. It required no advanced cooking skills, making it accessible to anyone in the household. Today, macaroni and cheese is often seen as indulgent or nostalgic. That perspective overlooks its original purpose. From-scratch macaroni and cheese represents practical ingenuity. It demonstrates how ordinary ingredients could produce a reliable, satisfying dinner that nourished families efficiently and affordably. Its presence on this list is essential because it embodies the resourcefulness and endurance of American kitchens during lean times. Cabbage and noodles. In the 1960s and 1970s, cabbage and noodles was not considered gourmet. It was considered essential. When meat was expensive or scarce, this dish provided bulk, calories, and a sense of fullness using inexpensive ingredients. That practicality made it a reliable choice for households on tight budgets. The preparation began with boiling egg noodles or wide pasta until tender. Cabbage was sliced thin and sautéed in a small amount of fat, often saved from earlier meals, until soft and slightly caramelized. Some families added onions or a pinch of sugar to balance bitterness, but the dish remained simple. Cabbage and noodles mattered because it could stretch to feed an entire family. The noodles added substance, while the cabbage contributed volume, fiber, and nutrients. Leftovers were easily reheated or transformed into a new meal with eggs or a small piece of meat. That adaptability was crucial in homes managing limited resources. This meal appeared on weeknights, during winter, or when grocery funds were low. Its preparation required little time and minimal skill, making it accessible to both adults and children. The aroma of cooked cabbage filling the kitchen signaled that dinner would be warm and sufficient. Flavor was basic but effective. The sweetness of caramelized cabbage, combined with soft noodles and fat, created a satisfying texture and taste. It was not indulgent, but it fulfilled the household's need for nourishment and consistency. Today, cabbage and noodles is often forgotten or overlooked. That perception misses its significance. This dish represents practicality, efficiency, and endurance in American kitchens. It belongs on this list because it exemplifies how simple, inexpensive ingredients could provide reliable meals. Cabbage and noodles is proof that even the humblest dinners can leave a lasting impact on memory, culture, and survival. These 10 poor man dinners from the 1960s and 1970s are more than recipes. They are records of resilience, creativity, and practicality in American kitchens when resources were limited. Each dish shows how ordinary ingredients, used thoughtfully, could feed families, stretch budgets, and provide comfort without excess. They remind us that food is not only about taste but about survival, care, and shared experience. By revisiting these meals today, we honor the households that made them, the lessons they taught, and the flavors that endured. Remembering these dishes preserves a part of American history worth savoring.